Our greatest potential? Well, I would definitely say self-awareness. Without that, there is no path to follow. We can't actually get to the next stage in life if we don't understand who we are, what our purpose for being is. I think the first part of my life story was a bit of a gift because it was difficult, very traumatic. There was a lot of suffering involved. And unfortunately, I think that is maybe a necessary part of the process, that we do experience some turmoil in the external. But certainly the greatest gift was me then going internally and starting this inner dialogue. So that is an essential part of the journey, is that we move our focus from the external world with this endless number of variables and look internally and start to understand that our thoughts and our belief systems inform our reality externally. So that internal view is essential. It's an essential first step, really, to any journey. In the history of humanity, we have been looking externally for, who we are and what we are capable of. And so this, at the moment, you can see there's massive progress in the collective, but there's also massive destruction. So looking at disease and poverty and violence and wars. And, when you're looking at those as symptoms, you start to understand that something is wrong with this external drive towards more. There is a deeper spiritual purpose to that journey. And if we don't understand that even suffering has a purpose, then you'll see, we end up avoiding, the suffering, and we avoid the discomfort, and we avoid looking at these aspects of our being when they are in fact the guidance. That is our guidance system to get to this more empowered, balanced, harmonious, connected place. But we are so distracted with the external because we are sensory driven. And so what we see, what we hear, and what we touch and feel out here sort of becomes our reality. What we're thinking becomes our reality. But that's sort of the first stage, only the first stage of our journey, while we do not understand that there's a deeper purpose. As soon as we start to understand that there's a deeper purpose and we start looking inward, then there's a whole different reality that starts to unfold, that leads us, guides us, in fact, towards a more balanced, harmonious, healthy, and purposeful life. I was born into suffering. So my world was chaotic with violent alcoholics and abuse and all of these things. And so the first part of my life was really just trying to survive, just trying to get out of that. And I had to take responsibility for 3 younger siblings. And so there was all of this responsibility. And that drove me to this place where I almost gave up at a point, but that turned me inward. That is an essential first step, that we go inward. And that happened when I was very young, at 9. And I happened to find something that was very valuable. When I got to a place where I'd given up and I wanted to kill myself by jumping in front of a train, I thought that would be the quickest and the least painful method. At that moment, I actually let go. I surrendered completely to this fate. And in that moment, I went internally and I found a sense of peace. I found strength. I found so many different things there, but there was a distinct shift in my awareness and a choice to make, either to face my fear, or obviously giving in that moment. But that process, that choice that I made, I didn't know it, as I said, I didn't know it at that point, but I'd found something, a sense of peace, a sense of empowerment. I'd found something. I didn't understand it at the time, but I'd found a natural guidance system within us all that is leading us on this pathway, on this journey towards a more empowered state, to an understanding that we are not just this physical thing, not just this mind, this personality, that actually we are eternal beings of infinite potential, or what we might call from a religious perspective, the soul. And as I then followed that journey throughout my life, it started taking shape. It started becoming a process that was very distinct and very easy to follow. And once I'd found that journey, once I'd found that process within me, then I realized that this is accessible to all humans if we clear our minds and our bodies of stress and toxins and all of these patterns that we're so stuck in, and we start clearing our system and our field, we all have access to this internal guidance system. We can be conscious and aware at soul level, as well as the conscious level that is playing the game, playing out the story of life, that there is something deeper that is constantly guiding us towards a deeper awareness that we are this incredible being of infinite potential, that we don't just live and die, that we are playing out a story, and that there's a purpose to that story. And at the first part of that story is really to dissolve the suffering that is in our personal lives. And once we start to understand that, then life becomes a lot simpler. You don't have to deal with all of these external variables. You just look inside yourself and understand why it is that this emotion that is moving through your body, where is it coming from? What is happening inside me? And when I do that and I start to take sort of responsibility for my emotional reaction to the world, an incredible choice point is created. So when I've recognized this pattern, I feel the emotion, I honor the emotion as having a purpose, and then I do not project that emotion externally to the world, then I start to see a pattern. And when I've seen that pattern, then I am empowered to change it with conscious choices. And so that is a very simple sort of formula for life. I feel it, I understand that it has a purpose, and in that moment that life is affecting me, of course, I have no control over life. I try to control life, but I have no control. But in that moment that life is affecting me, especially in a negative way, I can either do more of the same, which is my normal behaviors. I can do more of the same, which reinforces that pattern, or I can stop, take responsibility for how I'm reacting, and then consciously choose something different. And when I do that, I open up unlimited potential for something new, for something less painful, for less suffering, for something more beautiful and more constructive. So it's a very simple thing. So I call that the single point of influence. It's all that I am in the here and the now. And when life affects me, what do I choose to do? And that moment changes or has the potential to change everything. Now that I've found that, I certainly know that it is my purpose to share it with anyone who's searching for answers, anyone who is potentially suffering in their relationships, with their health, with mental emotional disorders, or even the really chronic states of disconnection. That is essentially what I do as a transformational guide. I've been working at the chronic end of the spectrum and helping people in those states out of deep addiction, mental emotional disorders, and disease. But those are only the chronic states. Those chronic states start with just the simple discomfort in our body, our stress, our fear, our anxiety, our insecurity. Those are the early warning systems that your body is trying to call for your attention. We have, within this process, this natural process, we have two guides. And once we understand that we are being guided, then life changes. So the two guides that we have are our body, and our body shows us where we are out of balance with our environment, with what we are processing, the energy that we're processing in terms of foods and chemicals and toxins. Our body immediately shows us our weight gain or weight loss, the condition of our skin, our hair, the color of our, the whites of our eyes, our tongue. These are all indicators, not judgment. They're indicators that we are slightly out of alignment, either to the positive or the negative side of the scale, but out of alignment. And if we know that and we start to observe the earlier stages of this, we can avoid almost all disease. And then the other great indicator is our mental emotional state. So our mind is the other part of the processing system, and it's processing information, whether that's sound or light or experiences. It is processing that. And as soon as we are having an emotional reaction to life, as soon as there is mental emotional turmoil in our life, it reflects that we are out of balance on that level. So with our belief systems, our thought forms, what we're thinking and how we are processing life. So emotional, we think that, our emotions or the emotional turmoil is there because of the situation or the person or whatever it is out there that has triggered us. And that may be true. Someone out there or something out there may have triggered the emotion, but still the emotion is coming up within us. And when we stop projecting and we then reflect internally and start to track that emotion and see what has really been triggered within us, we start to see those patterns, and those patterns empower us to change. So those two, let's call them mirrors, the physical body and your mental emotional state, especially with your lovers, your family members, your children, those relationships have the greatest potential to trigger those emotional states within us, which means they're triggering the underlying patterns or the underlying blockages in your energetic system that you are here to dissolve. You are here to dissolve those blockages so that creation or love or all of these things go through you. So that is what we all need to do. And if we understand that, as I said, then we stop living a life where we're so distracted by making money and doing all of these things that drive us towards a place where we feel validated by life, by the attention that we're getting, or the money that we are making, or the things that we wear, what we drive, the houses. There's this externalized expression that we have been conditioned to believe this is what will make us happy. But none of that really does make us happy, no matter how much money you have. No matter, if you think about a Hollywood star as an example that has all the adoration and all the money and everything that they might think would make them happy, but then so many of them still commit suicide and get lost in drugs, and because it's empty. Because what we all crave is connecting back to the truth, connecting back to the truth of what we really are, and that is it's a state of being that we are craving. We are craving connecting back to our truth beyond our physical and mental concept of self. And that is what causes all of our suffering on the planet, is that we are craving that, we're constantly, but we're looking for it externally, when actually it's not out there, it's within us. So although I haven't studied with any of the Eastern teachers or philosophies, I'm not particularly a religious person. And one of the things I hear most often is, and this is across the board. So yeah, I'm in the Middle East at the moment. So obviously most people are Muslim. And one of the things I hear most often from my clients is like, wow, everything that you're saying is in the Quran. Everything that you're saying is when I'm in the West, everything that you're saying is in the Bible, in these texts. These Indian gurus are speaking about it. So the beauty of that is understanding that I didn't go down any of those traditional routes, yet that information is inside me. It's inside us as human beings. And so it's a completely different perspective from the sort of more traditional perspective where we have to do something out there to be seen, to be loved, to be safe, to be prosperous. This new way of understanding life is understanding that everything that we need is inside us first. And then when we do that, when we connect to our truth and have a purpose, it is leading us towards this place of connection and abundance and joy and love. Because the journey really starts in a place of disconnection when we are born into physical form, and this mind that has a very specific perspective of what we are, that is a sense of disconnection. And that is intentional. That is a functional aspect of this incredible process that we are involved in. We are source consciousness born into form to have an experience. And from my perspective, the purpose of that experience is to dissolve patterns and belief systems that cause suffering. So then what we say is we're on a journey, and that journey is leading us from a state of disconnection where there's fear and suffering to a state of connection and unconditional love. And these are states of being. So we have a misperception in our world or in our reality that thinks that we can actually give someone love or receive love. And that's just simply very misleading. So everybody is searching for love. Everybody is searching for this thing that we call love. But the only thing that we can really give each other is attention. And when we give each other attention, it's a form of energy. We direct our life force into someone's field, and when we do that, their vibration starts to go up. They start to vibrate at a slightly different frequency, and they start to feel their natural state, which is unconditional love. I say unconditional love because we are so confused. We think we use the word love, but love in terms of our normal reality is not love. It is need. And so we need attention. We need validation. We need sex and power and all of these things to feel safe and loved and seen. But that is a very dense form of energy that most of us are very addicted to. And so most of our lives are dedicated to getting that energy that we need so that we can feel safe and loved and seen and validated. But that doesn't give us or bring us to that place of unconditional love. It just brings us into a place of more need. So we're on this hamster wheel, running to try to get more and more of this attention that makes us feel the love. But it is only when we stop looking externally for that and go internally, understand our purpose, start dissolving some of these patterns, these need-generated patterns, that we then connect to our truth. And there we find what we've been craving all along. It's always been there. We are born with it. We are born perfect. We just have to move through this period of identity and separation from our truth. And as I said, that is intentional by design. It is intentional, the journey from disconnection back to connection, back to an awareness that we are these eternal beings of infinite potential, that we are creators, and that creation flows through us. And the only thing that limits that creation is our sense of self, or what I would call mind, the conscious and the subconscious mind, where all these ancestral patterns, all the assimilated patterns, all the memory and experiences that, for me, in my terminology, form the pain body. So the pain body is the mind, and we are here to dissolve the pain body so that we can experience the truth of what we are, the unconditional love, the connection, the joy, the abundance, the health. These are all the ways that we determine or look at flow. The health of our energetic system is determined by the flow of our lives. Our creation flows through us. And then, as I said, health and joy and passion and abundance, all of these things are measurements of flow. And so it's not a judgment, it's an internal audit system where we can look and go like, where am I out of flow? You know, having lots of money doesn't necessarily mean I'm connected. But certainly, as I'm struggling with survival, it certainly is an indicator that I'm not in flow, and that, you know, depending on what has preceded me, the lineage that has preceded me, I'm still moving towards a place of balance and harmony, which means I need to shed some of these ancestral patterns and belief systems so I can get into a place of flow. And so once I was able to really start going internally and seeing those patterns, the next part of the journey really is about letting go of your sense of self. So the first part is about constructing a self. The next part is about deconstructing a self and understanding that the identity that we hold onto is the cause of much of our suffering. So it has been a gradual process of letting go of all these fields of influence that have shaped who Vincent thinks he is. You can look at even the fact that I identify as a man. Now, even that has a set of characteristics, you know, that determine my behavior, my part of my identity, and all of these things. And we get to a place where even that, we start to let go, and we start to integrate the feminine aspects of our being with the masculine aspects of our being, and understand that we are, no matter what our genitals are, we are both masculine and feminine. One aspect is in expression, but unless we balance out those characteristics within ourselves, we can never find balance and harmony. Of course, then the next stage is to balance it within our relationship, and then we zoom out, and then we need to balance those characteristics within consciousness itself, within humanity itself. So letting go of who I think I am is certainly essential to getting to a place where you are free of suffering. We are perfect by design, but as we manifest into physical reality and a mind starts to form, The mind has a purpose. We are not perfect in our human application and on the story level of our lives. It is the story that provides the ingredients of this incredible transformational process. It's an alchemical process, really. We are converting one state of energy to another state. So the journey and the identity, or what some might call the ego, they are important parts. They provide all the essential elements that create the alchemical reaction that evolves consciousness and evolves our own lives and our sense of self and everything else. So it's a very important part of the process. There's nothing negative to it. It is what it is meant to be. This is the purpose of physical reality and manifesting into a body with a separate mind, all of those things. That is the purpose of it. So once we understand these patterns in this inner world of ours, then we start to see that it's reflected across the entire spectrum of creation. And although it might sound very complicated, it is the simplest. I often say to my clients, it is embarrassingly simple, but yet, because we are programmed and conditioned and we have all of these patterns that are running, it is sometimes the hardest thing that we have to do, but it is incredibly simple. But we all have to start at that point of insight. So we move from an external focus to inner sight. And inner sight sets us on this journey, and it is the journey that reveals it. It is only something that can be experienced. So that is an essential part of this. So even with my clients, as I say, many of them are in chronic states of disease, addiction, mental emotional disorder. And so the process is not trying to apply a set formula to try to save them and help them or anything else. It is going on a journey with them and making them aware of this process within them and allowing them to step onto that path and heal themselves and understand their own abilities. So it's, the journey is unique to every human being. There are certain underlying principles which, it's important to understand, that we are these energetic beings and that there's this energetic exchange between us. But the path is unique. You are a unique expression of consciousness. And that uniqueness, not from an egocentric perspective, but that uniqueness has purpose. Your voice, finding your voice. Nothing is powerful as going on this internal journey and finding your truth, your voice, and then sharing that with everyone. There is nothing more powerful, because when we start to move into that state, there is no judgment, there is no right and wrong, there is no need, there is just expression. And it's almost a very quiet sense within ourselves where we just are observing reality as it unfolds, and we understand that life is sort of a fundamental force that is happening through us. We are the conduits of creation. And so what we see as physical reality is just like the memory of creation. So life is flowing through us and it is unfolding, and we navigate these streams of potential. That's what we are doing. And so as we move into the state of unconditional love, we move into a reverence of this incredibly beautiful process that is unfolding. And we understand that what I need, my personal will, what I think is right and wrong, what I want to happen and don't want to happen, those are all just manipulations. You trying to manipulate the rising of the sun. It's you wanting the sun to rise at a specific time and set at a specific time in a specific place. The process is something that is happening whether we like it or not. It's beautiful, it's perfect. We just don't know that because when we look out at the world or when we reflect on our lives, we often are distracted by the suffering that we see. We are distracted by, the negative aspects. But the negative aspects, the cruelty, the poverty, the hunger, the disease, those are guidance systems. Just as in our personal life, they're just guiding us towards a deeper awareness and understanding. So we cannot move into a state of truth and connection without the guidance system. And so we manifest externally. So these patterns that are within all of consciousness or within our lives that we now call the pain body, we are creators. So we manifest it externally so the eye can see it and the mind can change it. So the mind has this dual role. It is the mechanism that can click over from one state of being or guide us to another state, but it is also the thing that causes all of our suffering, that holds these patterns and the memories and all of these things. But if we understand it and we harness the true potential of mind, we align mind with purpose, then it becomes the mechanism that sets us free.